Peg Watch. This is Kuya Noel. Today we are honored again to have Kevin Lamoureux, my MP, Winnipeg North, riding, and we'll talk about the medical assistance in dying. Some people call it right to die legislation and its amendments. Hi, Kevin. Welcome back to our show. I know it's been a year now since I had you as one of my guests, along with, if I can still recall, along with Councillor Vivian Santos last year. Do you still recall that?
Yes, actually, I can recall that. The last time we did this, we actually did it at your place.
Yes.
And so a lot has happened. Today we're doing it virtual because of the coronavirus, but it's great to see you, and I appreciate being invited to participate in your show, or your program.
Yeah, before we discuss about the amendments of this legislation, briefly, for the sake of our viewers, of course, Kevin, what is medical assistance in dying, also known as MAID?
It's something that actually goes back a little while. When we actually had first formed government back in 2015, there was a Supreme Court of Canada decision, which in essence said that Canada really needs to adopt a law that would assist people in their passage or in their death. And that was the Supreme Court of Canada decision. There was an election that occurred in 2015, and there was a change in government where Justin Trudeau replaced Stephen Harper as Prime Minister. And we had this court deadline that needed to be met. And I can tell you, Kuya, it was a hotly discussed issue, very, very emotional on the floor of the House of Commons in Ottawa. It went through a lot of debates, committees, presenters, and we passed Canada's first legislation. And it's referred to as MAID, but it's medical assistance in passing or in death. And that's for people that are really terminally ill, like they've hit a point in which the desire is to pass, and this will allow them to do that. And that was the original legislation that dates back a few years ago.
So yeah, you mentioned about it was actually implemented or became available, the program, 5 years ago. And
Yes.
I was doing a research on this, and since 5 years ago, since then, there has been 625 assisted deaths in Manitoba, including 214 last year. And I understand also today, correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, I understand that today, unless the opposition has requested for an extension, today is the deadline to have the new legislation in place. I'm referring to the amendments for the MAID, or medical assistance in dying. Can you tell us briefly what are changing in terms of eligibility criteria for MAID as stated in Bill C7, Kevin?
Yeah. First of all, I give you full credit that you actually knew the numbers here in the province of Manitoba that used the MAID legislation. I thought you were going to be wrong. I thought you were talking about Canada, but Canada's, you're going into the thousands that actually have accessed this legislation. I did not know the actual numbers for Manitoba, so I learned that from you firsthand on your program. So good for you for knowing it. So what happened is, as I pointed out, we had brought in brand new legislation. We didn't have this type of law on the book, and it actually passed in 2016. So it was the first time. We all believed back then that there was going to be a need to make changes. In fact, we had set up a system that would assist us in reevaluating it and then coming back with some changes. But what happened was there was a decision from a superior court in Quebec that said that it's unconstitutional, that there's certain aspects of the MAID legislation that we passed back in 2016 that needed to be changed. So we had a choice. We either don't make the change and then the province of Quebec would be in a very difficult position because they would have a law that's not validated, or appeal it to the Supreme Court of Canada, the decision that was from Quebec, or comply and make those changes. We decided back early last year to make the changes. Now, the details, the actual details of the changes, I really couldn't say for sure because I don't want to give misinformation. It has a lot to do with when is someone reasonably foreseen to pass. And there was an incident where, for example, let's say if you wanted to access MAID today, you have to be able to, in the days leading up to your death, you have to reaffirm your consent. And you have to be of sound mind in order to be able to do that. Well, you know, the Quebec court says, well, it's very difficult for someone to do that because sometimes as your illness proceeds, it gets to the degree in which you don't have that ability to make that decision. So under the amendments, it allows a person to say that I am very much aware what's happening in my environment right now, and I give my consent to participate, and I do want my life to ultimately come to an end without that medical assistance other than to assist me in the actual passing. And if you allow the legislation to pass now, they would actually be able to do that, which helps meet the criteria that the Quebec Superior Court has asked. There's issues regarding mental someone with their mental capacities, and there are still a few issues that are out there that the legislation attempts to do. But what was important to recognize is that we say that we're not going to stop. We're going to try to pass what we have now to meet the Quebec Superior Court as requirements. And then we're going to have an ongoing committee of sorts that would be investigating and looking on how we can still improve upon the legislation. Mental illness is a very good example where there seems to still be a lot of questions. As I say, when we have ultimately a vote on it, what you'll see is that there will be some people within a political party will vote against a different way than a political party because it's a free vote. And it's a very emotional debate.
Yeah. Speaking about the vote on whether to to approve those proposed amendments, I read an article, Globe and Mail, I believe, that your co-liberal member Marcus Polowski, who is who's a doctor, if I'm not mistaken, and he represents the Ontario riding of Thunder Bay Rainy River. He said that the government's contentious medical assistance in dying bill could allow people suffering from deep but temporary despair to end their lives. So, in essence, he is not supporting this bill. What's your, and also, of course, there are critics out there saying that this assisted dying bill failed to protect the vulnerable Canadians, of course, referring to people who have mental illness. In fact, Roger Foley, who suffers from an incurable neurological disease, is urging MPs not to expand medical assistance in dying to allow people with disabilities to end their lives. And he said, and I quote, "Assisted dying is easier now to access than safe and appropriate disability supports to live." So what is the government doing to to help our citizens with mental illness?
I think that what we have to look at is there's going to be people on both sides of the issue. If you take a look at the House of Commons, which is fairly reflective of Canadian society in general, you'll see that you have the Bloc, the NDP, the Green Party, and the Liberal Party almost in its entirety, and all the MPs that involves, saying that we need this legislation and will be voting in favor of the legislation. Within the Conservative Party, I suspect it'll be more of a split. My best guess is still a majority of them will still vote for the legislation. There is a minority of members of Parliament that are saying that we're going too far. Now, Canada operates on a rule of law. We respect the Supreme Court's decisions. Our superior courts often will influence what it is that we're actually bringing in. You're always going to be able to cite examples, of someone saying, "Well, no, it's a bad thing." I can tell you, from my perspective, there's a lot more examples of on the other side where people were condemning the government because we weren't doing enough, or that we're not acting quickly enough. And there's stories that will bring tears to your eyes on both sides of the issue. But I believe at the end of the day, in the Charter of Rights, the rule of law, that the vast majority of the MPs are in fact on the right track in moving forward. And as a safety precaution, we are going to continue to review the law and look at ways in which we can improve it. And that's something in which I do support.
Yeah. Last question before I let you go. And thank you so much for clarifying this particular legislation to our viewers. Kevin, as we all know, there are many Filipinos in our riding, including myself, and here at Winnipeg North. You are, I may say, an adopted son of the Filipino community, as you have, connected with us, connected to us, and you have helped, no question, many of us in terms of immigration, and you embrace the culture of the Filipino community and even our faith. Now, you know very well how we value our life and how we respect and honor our elderly people. And I remember when you were still an MLA, I don't know if you are the author for the Grandparents' Day in Manitoba, if I'm not mistaken.
It was, yes.
Yeah, there you go. So
not too many people remember that.
See, we are on the same level of almost belief, like you are a Filipino by heart. Now, with this bill, I know it's very ironic in terms of our culture, right, and our faith. How do you explain to your constituents in Winnipeg North the rationale and the moral principle behind the right to die legislation, or MAID?
It's a very good question. And first and foremost, thank you for your very kind words, Kuya Noel. At the end of the day, the Filipino heritage community plays such an important aspect of my life. It identifies who I am as a person today, because over the last 30 years, how much my life has been enriched, in every aspect, because of so many people that I've gotten to know and love. Having said that, it's a very good question, because I too come from a Catholic background. I look at people like Monsignor Sampson from St. Peter's Church, my staff that are very strong Catholics, other members that I know that are very much into whether it's a Pentecostal churches or others. And I guess at the end of the day, I look at this and I say that I remember when my grandma had passed away. And my grandma passed away back in the mid-90s. And it was such a difficult time. And she found it very hard. And all she was saying to me, to me and my father at the time, was that she wanted to be able to pass, that she doesn't want any more medications. The healthcare system does what it can to keep people alive. And in certain situations, doctors already, even before we had the legislation, would make a decision, well, maybe we should give this morphine, or we could stop this kind of medications. And in essence, the person would pass as a direct result. I know that's how my grandmother had passed away. Government and healthcare professionals, to a certain degree, already play a role. I have to reflect not only my own personal beliefs, but what I believe that my constituents and Canadian society would like me to portray on this very personal issue. It's tough. It's been a very difficult, and the only reason I might not come across as being tough for me personally, but I've had to deal with this for the last 5 to 6 years now, and it is not an easy subject. As you cited some specific examples, I can tell you some of the examples that you hear in committee are gut-wrenching, and they bring tears to your eye. We would see members of Parliament cry on the floor of the House of Commons. It's a tough issue. And at the end of the day, yes, we have to be able to reconcile. I'm hoping people that of strong faith will see that to a certain degree, it's been happening for a long time, but it's been more in the background. And yes, this does make it more accessible, but we need to understand that it's not like we're being given a choice. This is a Supreme Court of Canada decision. So between that and the charter, I feel that I'm doing what I need to be able to do, and I hope that people won't see me as not following my own personal faith.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Kevin. And I hope when I invite you again next time, it will be in person. We'll talk about more things about your role as our representative in Ottawa. Thank you very much, sir.
Wonderful. You have a great day, and it's nice to be with you and your viewers.
All the best. Bye now.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.